السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. كيف أمسيتم؟ أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله، لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. ربي أسألك خير ما في هذه الليلة وخير ما بعدها. ربي أعوذ بك من شر ما في هذه الليلة ومن شر ما بعدها. ربي أعوذ بك من الكسل والسوء الكبر. ربي أعوذ بك من عذاب في النار ومن عذاب في القبر. بسم الله الذي لا إله سواه، الواحد الأحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد، خالق كل شيء وهو بكل شيء عليم. يعلم ما يلج في الأرض وما يخرج منها وما ينزل من السماء وما يعرج فيها، ويعلم ما نسرون وما نعلنون وإليه النشور سبحانه وتعالى. We continue بإذن الله تعالى in the discourse, as we promised also last time, concerning Ar-Ruh. And in addition to what we have covered so far, I hope that we benefit from that and that we do not forget that to review that. And if we develop questions, you're welcome to ask me those questions when I'm here or when we have sessions for questions and answers, and that we internalize those, inshallah. I hope you didn't forget that. And I promised last time that we start another aspect that Al-Imam rahimahullah ta'ala Ibn al-Qayyim addresses in Al-Kitab that we are using as a structure, Kitab al-Ruh. What did I promise today we talk about? Some of you, those who were here, I said, and I read to you the title, this is what we're going to cover next time. Yeah, I think you mean it. Yes, that's basically what we were going to do. The subject was, and he put it as a question mark, هل تنتفع أرواح الموتى بشيء من سعي الأحياء أم لا? Do the souls of the dead benefit by any of the actions for them from the living, such as dua, prayer, that is, salah, sawm, hajj, tilawat al-Quran, dhikr, and so on? Does it benefit them or not? So that's the question he addresses here, rahimahullah ta'ala, and we hope at the time that we have, hopefully we'll cover almost everything that he mentioned by me summarizing to you mostly what is said, inshallah ta'ala, because if we were to do everything, that'll take hours. So he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, first of all, in answer to that question, which he really doesn't, but he said, فَالْجَوَابُ, the answer is, and he's specific and scholarly, mentioning the differences. أنها تنتفع من سعي الأحياء بأمرين مجمع عليهما بين أهل السنة من الفقهاء وأهل الحديث وأهل التفسير. First of all, he says, number one, indeed, they do benefit by two things agreed upon by all of the fuqaha, the jurists of the people of Ahl Sunnah, who follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, besides as well as the Kitab, and the scholars of Hadith, that is the teachings, the Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of the Hadith of the Sahaba and so on, and the scholars of exegesis, the scholars of tafsir, explaining and elucidating the Quran. He says, the two things they agreed upon are the following. Number one, ما تسبب إليه الميت في حياته. ما تسبب إليه الميت في حياته. First of all, under this rubric or this title, that which the deceased was a cause for it during his life. In other words, he will benefit in accordance to the scholar's agreement he will benefit from anything that when he was living, he had something to do with it. He was the cause for it. We'll see. Second, that they all agree to, دعاء المسلمين له واستغفارهم له والصدقة. And all the ulama agree of that which the deceased will benefit from بإذن by the merciful grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when his fellow Muslims pray for him or for her. Dua after they die, dua, supplication, prayer for the deceased. And number two, asking Allah to forgive that person. Imploring Allah for forgiveness for that person. That they all agree benefits him. And the third thing is sadaqah, charity. We give in charity all sorts of charities, and we intend that to go as a gift for the deceased. Now, is this clear? And then he says, وَالْحَجِّ عَلَى نِزَاعٍ. Hajj also, however, with some diversities or divergences amongst the ulama, which are differences. What is it? ما الذي يصل من ثوابه؟ هل ثواب الإنفاق أو ثواب العمل؟ أي ما الذي يصل إلى الميت من حج غيره عليه؟ ثواب الإنفاق أم ثواب العمل وفعل المناسك ذاتها? The question is, when it comes to Hajj, they differed. Yes, there is benefit, but which type of benefit? Does the deceased benefit by the spending, the action of spending on his behalf by those who are living to go to Hajj? Or the very actions themselves of Hajj as actions do benefit him? Do you see the difference? For some it's a little, too scholarly maybe. But this is, they had to answer the questions, what he benefits from or she or they benefit from. Is it the act of Hajj or the spending in the act of Hajj? Some say it is the jumhur of the ulama, the majority of the ulama of the school say it is al-amalu dhatuh. Even the action of Hajj benefits him. فعند الجمهور يصل ثواب العمل نفسه وعند بعض الحنفية إنما يصل ثواب الإنفاق والspecific. In accordance to some jurists in the Hanafi school, what reaches him, what benefits him is the action of infaq, of spending, and not the act itself. Whereas the majority, and these are the opinions that were long centuries ago, and those opinions have changed. Nowadays, probably all schools and most scholars would agree with this line of opinion in the schools of thought, in the four schools of thought. But he's speaking, and he lived, rahimahullah ta'ala, in which century, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim? I don't know. Six now, you're close, but he lived in the 8th century Hijri. 8th century Hijri. In the late 7th and the up to mid-8th century Hijri. Rahimahullah ta'ala. Because his teacher, who died before him, something like 10 or 20 years before him, one of his main teachers, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, died in the early 8th century. died around 728 Hijri. So he's speaking, up to that era. Keep that in mind. And many things have changed in the opinions of the ulama even after that, because as we pointed out in our last seminar, the ulama change their minds sometimes on issues, and they embrace sometimes the issues which earlier they did not, because with time things became more and more apparent and clearer. So he mentions that ibadah of the physical nature, done by us physically. Like what? Fasting, salah, recitation of the Quran, Hajj, and so on. He says, Al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala, and he says, وَجُمْهُورُ السَّلَفِ, and the majority of the Salaf. When he says Salaf, what does he mean usually? If this is correct, if this naqal is correct, what does he mean? Not much before him. Salaf, the time of the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and the Tabi'in in particular. And sometimes some people include our generation or two as part of the later Salaf, so to speak. He says that the majority of them are of the opinion that all of that, the reward of it, does reach the deceased, and the deceased benefit from that. وهو قول بعض أصحاب أبي حنيفة. He says also some of the scholars in the Hanafi madhab also adhere to this understanding and to this fatwa, to this opinion, etc. And he says, towards somewhere later, وَالْمَشْهُورُ, now it's in his time, وَالْمَشْهُورُ مِنْ مَذْهَبِ الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي والإمام مالك أن ذلك لا يصل. And what is prevalent, well known, the established opinion in the Shafi'i school, the well established opinion, mashhur, known well, not necessarily rajih. Those of you who know the distinctions between this, not necessarily rajih, not necessarily sahih. So by the opinion of the well-established opinion among the Shafi'i school at that time was, and the Maliki school, is that the rewards of that, of the corporal, of the physical acts of ibadat by living for a dead, do not reach them. And he says here, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَذَهَبَ بَعْضُ أَهْلِ الْبِدَعِ من أهل الكلام أنه لا يصل إلى الميت شيء البتة لا دعاء ولا غيره. And he said, however, some people, which he describes as people of bid'ah, the bid'ah in the negative sense, bid'ah qabiha, people of bid'ah claim that nothing whatsoever reaches the deceased. He benefits from nothing from the living. They say, and he calls them, they are the shuzuz, in other words, the absolute rare exception, and they are of Ahlul Bidah, like some of the Mu'tazili scholars, some of them more excessively Qadari and so on, they would deny that. And then he begins, first of all, by mentioning some of the evidence and the use of that evidence for the proof that the opinion he has mentioned earlier, the first one, that they do benefit, he begins to establish that. For example, I mentioned a few things of that. First of all, of the evidence that the deceased benefit by that which he was cause to, by that which he was or she was cause for or to, while living يعني ما تسبب إليه في حياته. For example, what Imam Muslim, he says, related in his Sahih and others, إذا مات, many of you know this text of course, إذا مات الإنسان انقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث etc. صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. That the text teaches when the human being dies, then his amal, his actions, his deeds stop, are cut, stop. Except from three things. Except three things. And which most of you know. Which are Sadaqah Jariyah, an ongoing charity. Charity given in his life when he was living, or she was living, which he meant it to continue, and it continues after his death. Like a waqf, like building a masjid, a hospital, whatever. Sadaqah that continues to benefit others after even his or her death. That as though the person is still living and doing that him or herself. That's the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. Second, أو علم ينتفع به, or that person spread some ilm, some knowledge that is beneficial. He left, she left, or they left behind knowledge in the hearts of others which was beneficial to them. Beneficial in what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is as though the person is still living and still doing that, and Allah Azza wa Jal is rewarding him or her for that. Or, again very beautifully, or that she or he or they, he leaves a son, a child or a daughter, walad. He dies and leaves children, or one of those children, salih. He or she, they worked to raise that child in a righteous, moral, beautiful, Allah-loving and Allah-reviewing and fearing person, and lives like that. That person living is an act, in a sense, of the person who died. And as though the person is by himself doing those actions that the son is doing or the daughter is doing. Allah rewards him or her. Even after they die, it continues to come to their records. So, of course, in this text and many other texts like this, what is this text doing? A person left charity, so a person تسبب إلى ذلك. He or she did things that were cause for these good things while they were living. So that's a text proof that anything, so this is like by extension or by statistical analysis or inductive analysis, because these are juz'iyat. These are 1, 2, 3 cases, and then generalizing that to a more normative case, meaning to take these and to see what do they contain of special meaning. And then you take that special meaning and you generalize it. That's by inductive analysis. By inductive analysis, the conclusion is, well, anything that the person took part in starting, in making, in doing, he was or she was a cause for that, he benefits from that. The text does not say specifically the statement, anything you are cause for, you will be benefiting from. But these are examples of that rule. The rule is obtained by induction. The specifics are obtained by deduction, by deductive observation, and the general meaning is drawn by inductive analysis. The point is that he's making is that these are examples of Allah Azza wa Jal benefiting a human being after she or he dies by that which they were caused for when they were alive, living. And he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, in addition to other texts, he mentions the example of the son of Adam, one of the two sons of Adam, the bad one. What did he do? He killed his brother. He killed his own brother. And killing was not known before that. In accordance to what Rasulullah teaches us in hadith. He tells us أول من سن القتل. The first person who sanna, remember what we learned about sanna? The first person who started, initiated, innovated, invented, introduced for the first time the crime of killing. And therefore, what's the consequence of that? Subhanallah. Ya Latif. Every person after that is killed in that same manner, criminally, someone kills someone else. Everyone who kills shall bear the burden of killing in the day of judgment, and sometimes even in dunya. Not only that, but what else? The person who killed first will also, Ya Latif, bear all the brunt of all of those who came after and killed anybody, without diminishing from their criminality either. The point is, of course, it's good to mention these things, that when we do evil, especially when we invent an evil thing, and it is going to be practiced through culture and through time, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, everything we invented of evil practiced by anyone, the person who invented that on the day of judgment will carry the loads, the painful loads, the tormenting loads, the punishing loads of all of those who have committed any similar evil, without removing their evil, those who do. It's horrible to know. It's divine justice. We fear divine justice. But divine merciful love, then Ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah ta'ala, since it is like that, then by the concept of divine merciful love and the concept of qiyasul awla, if you will, by proper analogy, that the person who does a good thing, the person who does a good thing, and a graceful thing, and a gracious thing, then that person also, if followed by others, will be rewarded in the same way that they are rewarded, not diminishing from their rewards anything. So in other words, he's saying, and if you offer a good thing to someone, you're living, you offer a good thing to someone, you want to do that, it's yours, and you offer it, then Allah Azza wa Jal, as He punishes those who do evil, He rewards those who do good for others as well. It is a sort of reasoning by analogy. The point is, that's only the first part. And then he says, secondly, as to the evidence, some of the evidence, of course, what he mentioned is much more than what I just mentioned, but we need to mention one or two to make the point. And then the second point, and the evidence that the deceased benefits by that which others do, not that which he or she himself was caused for. He says the evidence for that is in the Quran, in the Sunnah. He says in the Ijma' and in the rules of Shara. والدليل على انتفاعه بغير ما تسبب فيه القرآن والسنة والإجماع وقواعد الشرع. Does it remind you of something when I stated these things? He says the proof of that, this is something that is not necessarily, anyways, the proof of that is, he said, the Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma' and the rules of Shara. What we mentioned a week ago or so, that the sources of knowledge are not only the Quran and the Sunnah. Ijma' kada, and he mentions here generally قواعد الشرع, the rules of proper Shari'i reasoning. The rules of proper Shari'i reasoning. أما القرآن, as to the Quran, he mentions many texts, one of which والذين جاءوا من بعدهم يقولون ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان. Allah says in the Quran, people who have died, and then those who came after them, that is believing men and women who died, and those believing men and women who came after them, Allah mentions, praising them, they address their Lord and say, "O our Lord, forgive us and those who were before us in faith." So, what is the argument here? Here is something that the disease did not do. The act of dua, the act of supplication, of solicitation, of prayer, prayerfulness, prayer, that is dua, is done by not him or her, but by others, and Allah Azza wa Jal praises that. And many other texts. كذلك from the Sunnah he mentions a few, one of which that he says sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as is in the Sunan, إذا صليتم على الميت فأخلصوا له الدعاء. When you perform salah upon the deceased, like Salatul Janazah, let your dua for that person be very sincere. Be sincere, don't just be like a robot there or like a mechanic. You know, doing things mechanically, habitually. Focus in all salah. In your Salatul Janazah, focus. Feel. Do that. Feel Allah's presence. Feel that moment, that meaning. If you do that with ikhlas, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asks us to do that in that manner because it benefits the deceased. And here is another example through the Sunnah of, again, the act not by the deceased but by other than the deceased, the living, in this case the act of dua, that, and he says it benefits him or her, them, you know. And many other texts he mentions, some of which you are familiar with to the extent that even he tells us when you bury someone, after you bury them, what do? Stand there for a while and pray for them and ask Allah to forgive them. So that's our act, the living benefiting the dead. I should suffice myself by this, but I'm going to mention this one because it's good. I think you will like it. If you knew it, it's a good reminder that hadith teaches that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses someone who is already in paradise, in Jannah, and then raises him in spiritual levels of paradisial delight. يَرْفَعُهُ دَرَجَةً فِي الْجَنَّةِ. He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, raises this person in more special levels of the nearness of Allah and of the exaltation in Jannah. And he says, by what did I deserve this? I didn't do anything else more. That's it. Then he's told, بِدُعَاءِ وَلَدِكَ لَكَ. I gave you this, مَنًّا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلًا, as a grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on account of your child who is living, is praying for you. SubhanAllah. Deeds of the living benefiting the dead. And of course, and he mentions evidence pertaining to sadaqah, that the act of sadaqah, of charity, benefits those who have already died, if it is done for them or on their behalf. Famous text in Bukhari and Muslim, for example, where a man comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says, Ya Rasulullah, inna ummi iftalatat nafsuha wa lam tusi, i.e., my mother died suddenly and she did not leave a will. وأظنها لو تكلمت تصدقت. I even believe that if she were to speak after she died, she would recommend sadaqah for her. أفلها أجر إن تصدقت عنها؟ قال نعم. Then the man asked, would she be rewarded if I give in charity for her or on her behalf? He answers, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes. The grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. Another example of أعمال غير الميت. Deeds of other than the deceased are benefiting the deceased in accordance to these texts. And he mentions in this regard many other texts that give exactly the same conclusion, lead to the same conclusion in Sahih Muslim and in others as well. By the way, I'm going to mention this text here because if you think about it, it will help later just in case we don't get there to that point. Sayyiduna Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, that his grandfather Al-As ibn Wa'il نذر في الجاهلية أن ينحر 100 بدنة. He pledged in his Jahiliyyah time to give in charity, to slaughter and give in charity the meat of all of that, 100 camels. Those days it's like, sometimes one camel is like a Rolls Royce. Now really, I computed some of that, what the camel used to cost, especially some special camel. It would cost sometimes the price of a Rolls Royce, because of what you benefit of it also, not just the camel, the meat and what it was for and how it used to be, so how much it used to cost, and etc. He would give 100 camels, and then he died. And then Amr ibn al-As radiallahu ta'ala, Sayyiduna Amr ibn al-As asked one day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an dhalik, about that. In other words, would I do that for my father? Would it benefit him? He said, أما أبوك فلو أقر بالتوحيد فصمت وتصدقت عنه نفعه ذلك. رواه الإمام أحمد, related by Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. He said to him, however, if your father lived or died as a muwahid, which he did not, Al-As ibn Wa'il, and he was a staunch enemy, if he declared Tawheed and lived in Tawheed and died in Tawheed, then your siyam, your fasting and your charity on his behalf would benefit him. And he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, other texts more specific pertaining to the deceased benefiting from the fasting of his relatives, for example, or her relatives on their behalf. especially if it is siyam, that is nafila siyam, or never pledge siyam, supererogatory siyam, or pledge siyam, especially that, or even if a person, as many ulama say, was a fard sawm and he died or she died and did not have the time and the opportunity to make up their fast. All of those are texts that teach, there are texts that teach the person dies, his or her relatives, his or her children, for example, may do that on their behalf. For example, what Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim both relate عن سيدة عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من مات وعليه صيام صام عنه وليه. The person who dies while having to fast, in other words, the fast was obligatory upon him or her and did not do that, then his or her guardian, his or her wali, may do that for him or her on their behalf. And many other texts also in Bukhari and in Muslim and in others in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam answers that way. This is another example of what? I want you to be clear about this. Don't sleep on me here. Are you sleeping? If you're sleeping, maybe it's my fault. So what does this teach? Again? Benefiting the dead by the living, performing what? Physical acts by whom? By other than the living, because first of all we spoke of benefiting by his deeds or deeds that he was cause for. Number two, we're talking about what? Benefiting of the deeds for which he was not direct cause for. It's very important, that classification. I'm not mentioning it just like that, and he's not mentioning just like that for extra words. You know, our ulama, rahimahumullah ta'ala, those who are really ulama, they don't mention extra sentences if they are not communicating something important. Keep that in mind. Aina. And like the other woman who came that her mother or her father was had to perform some fast which he could not, and then he says, yes, فَقْضِ عَنْ أُمِّكَ فَقْضِ عَنْ أَبِيكَ, etc. Aina. Then he goes after many examples and making that clear when it comes to Hajj. He says, well, the evidence is there. There should be no differences on this, he argues. وَأَمَّا وُصُولُ ثَوَابِ الْحَجِّ, as to the individual truly benefiting from the act of Hajj, after dying, Hajj of others on his behalf, is what Imam al-Bukhari and others related on the authority of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, that a woman from the tribe of Juhayna came to our Nabi sallallahu wa sallam alayhi and said to him, my mother pledged, inna ummi nazarat an tahujja falam tahujj. My mother had pledged to Allah to perform a Hajj, in other words, an extra Hajj, Hajj nafila, supererogatory Hajj, and did not do that, and she died. أَفَأَحُجُّ عَنْهَا, may I perform Hajj for her in this case? And he replied, many of you know this, حُجِّ عَنْهَا, indeed do that for her or on her behalf. And he teaches us that this is a matter of qiyas. This is a matter of what? Qiyas, which is what we said in English, reasoning by analogy, proper analogy. أرأيت لو كان على أمك دين أكنت قاضيته؟ أقضوا الله فالله أحق بالقضاء. And he told her, Ara'ayti, in other words, rationalize. Ara'ayti is like, think and use your rationale. If your mother had a debt, would you have paid that debt for her? The answer is yes. So in other words, use that to come to that same conclusion. And that's qiyas. He said, and that's why the right of Allah, haqqullah, Allahu haqqa an yuqda. Allah is more deserving that we pay our dues to Him Azza wa Jal, and we rectify that which is between us and Him even through these means. And many other hadith pertaining to also Hajj, for the person who, for example, came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said that her mother died and could not perform Hajj at all. May I perform Hajj on her behalf? And he says yes. And you all know that because that is well established. Usually when we speak of the fiqh of Hajj, it is called what? Hajj al-Badal. And then he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, after that, after a few paragraphs, وَأَجْمَعَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ عَلَى أَنَّ قَضَاءَ الدَّيْنِ يُسْقِطُهُ مِنْ ذِمَّتِهِ. First of all, he says it's a consensus amongst the Muslims that, it is a consensus amongst the Muslims that if someone pays off the debt on behalf of someone else living, that the person is released from that obligation. وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ أَجْنَبِيٍّ أَوْ مِنْ غَيْرِ تَرِكَتِهِ. Even if that was paid for by a stranger or from money that is not his at all. وقد دل عليه حديث أبي قتادة. And he mentions a hadith on the authority of Sahabi Abu Qatada rahimahullah radiyallahu ta'ala an, in that regard, and which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam approved and said, الآن بردت عليه جلدته. In other words, when his dayn was paid for the diseased by those who were living, he says now he's cooled off, now he's refreshed. Because the dayn is not forgiven unless the person who credited forgives. And therefore the dayn must be paid. الآن بردت جلدته. Says he, now his skin has cooled off. Now I'm going to mention this, rahimahullah ta'ala, and he uses reasoning, if you will, by analogy, to come to the ultimate conclusion. فإذا سقط من ذمة الحي بالنص والإجماع مع إمكان آدائه له بنفسه إلى غير ذلك، فسقوطه من ذمة الميت بالإبراء حيث لا يتمكن من أدائه أولى وأحرى. وإذا انتفع بالإبراء والإسقاط فكذلك ينتفع بالهبة والإهداء، ولا فرق بينهما، فإن ثواب العمل حق المهدي الواهب، فإذا جعله للميت انتقل إليه، كما أن ما على الميت من الحقوق من الدين وغيره هو محض حق الحي، فإذا أبرأه وصل الإبراء إليه وسقط من ذمته، فكلاهما حق للحي. فأي نص أو قياس أو قاعدة من قواعد الشرع يوجب وصول أحدهما ويمنع وصول الآخر؟ What he says briefly, rahimahullah ta'ala, that if a person pays off the debt of a living, it's not from his wealth and it's not his deed. It's the deed of someone else. And that's by consensus and by text and consensus that will release the debtor from his debt, from his responsibility, completely. And it's not his action, it's not even his wealth. And so, it is also one living benefits with the gift of someone living as well. One gives you a gift in this dunya, and you benefit from, that's accepted to be given a gift. And in both cases, the haqq, the right, is the right of the giver. Right? In the first case, when a person is in debt and someone else comes, pays the debt for him. The money, that's his right. And that's his own right. And or if he wants to give hadiyah to someone, that's his own right. And in both cases, it belongs to him, and he chose to forego his right for someone else. And that's accepted by text and by ijma'. So this person who owns something and willed that the benefit of it as he is living goes to something else, because that's what the meaning is. Somebody paying off the debt of somebody, analysis of it. There is a person who has money, who has that authority, and he chose to transfer that money, to transfer that authority, that right, to someone else. And that's accepted. That's the meaning. And that's accepted by Shara and the rules of Shara and even the text and consensus. So he says, what's the difference? What's the difference then? For the person living, and the deed belongs to him. The Sawm is his. The Hajj is his. The Quran is his. The Salah is his. His right and his, ownership in that sense. And he chooses to give it to someone else. He says, what's the difference? He says in his argument, neither text, nor qiyas, nor ijma', nor rules of shara' would prevent this argument. And plus, in addition to that, the other texts that were mentioned were indeed the diseased benefits from acts of the living from this dunya, which have nothing to do with the living being a direct cause. Fasting, Hajj, there are texts of that, etc., etc. So he says, وقد نبه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بوصول ثواب الصوم الذي هو مجرد ترك ونية تقوم بالقلب لا يطلع عليه إلا الله وليس بعمل الجوارح، أي نبه بوصول الثواب بذلك. That Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم drew our attention, he says, by telling us that the reward and the benefits reaches a deceased one by the act of a living, the act of Sawm, to lead us. And Sawm, he says, it's an act of niyyah. Nobody is doing something, doing. It's just inside of you, and you're not doing, you're not eating. Nobody knows. And it's your niyyah inside. He says this, Rasulullah mentions, to indicate وصول ثواب القراءة التي هي عمل باللسان تسمعه الأذن وتراه العين بطريق الأولى. He says Rasulullah meant to teach us by even a stronger analogy, بطريق الأولى. If that is valid, then reading the Quran for the deceased, on behalf of the deceased, which is not only niyyah, which is an act that you can hear. You can hear a person reading the Quran and niyyah. Whereas sawm, you don't even know. He says, he argues that if that is by text permissible, not only permissible, but rewarding, then he says this should be even more so. You know. After he has mentioned the difference of opinions amongst the ulama, rahimahullah ta'ala. And then he mentions some of the concerns that have been mentioned, and he answers those as well, rahimahullah ta'ala. Now, I'm going to take a few more minutes, if you don't mind, before we break for salah. At what time is salah? 9:15 or not 9 o'clock? Okay. Of the argument that, this is an improper way, that is, the قراءة القرآن لا تصل إلى الميت. And I said this is a matter of differences of opinions, but the likes of Imam Ahmad, and in accordance to the report of here of Ibn Qayyim, the majority of the Salaf practiced that. But he's still reasoning, rahimahullah ta'ala, and mentioning arguments in favor of that which was practiced by the majority of our Salaf, rahimahullah ta'ala. That is that أن الميت ينتفع بكل أعمال الخير البدنية منها وغير البدنية وحتى تلاوة القرآن. In addition to the text that he mentions, the opinions of the ulama, the argument وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى. That's one argument in the Quran which says, how do you translate that? Okay, nobody can benefit from that which he has not worked on. Okay, alhamdulillah. Any other translation? There is nothing for man except what he strives for. Between those two translations, which one do you prefer? This one? And you prefer his, mashallah. What about the rest? You have no opinion? From what you heard? Khair. That's a better translation. وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. The argument to answer that concern, those who say this is an argument that is teaching us that the deceased does not benefit except from what he strove for. Of course, there are 2 or 3 ways to answer that. One way is which one? Which we have already established. Which is that way? Be more specific. Hadith. Be more specific. Khalas, for example. So we have mentioned that and the other hadith, those 3 types, and the Sawm and the Hajj and the Sadaqah, all of those are not what he did. Not what he, as those who bring this argument, rahimahullah ta'ala, strove for. But this ayah is not saying that the human being does not benefit from the deeds of others. It doesn't say that, though it is translated that way, usually construed like that and mentioned like that in khutab and so on and so forth. It doesn't say that. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِي. What is li here in the Arabic language? Huh? No? Well, for li lil-milkiyah. Lam al-milkiyah. This lam is for possession, ownership. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ. No human being owns and possesses anything except that which he worked for. It does not say he doesn't benefit. He doesn't own. And this is a very fine observation by some special ulama like Ibn Aqil rahimahullah ta'ala and the likes of the top ulama. They mentioned, but this is not what the text is explicitly saying. If you want to be explicit, nassan, this is saying, the text is saying, you don't own. It doesn't say you don't benefit from the deeds of others. It says you don't own the deeds of others. Subhanallah. But if those who own the deeds give it to you, that's their right. The text doesn't say that. The text says you don't own. Similarly, the other argument that they have leveled, rahimahullah ta'ala, and for those of us who don't diversify our sources of knowledge from our great ulama and are very serious in knowledge, the first thing we hear, it becomes the only thing. First thing we learn, it becomes the only thing. Whoever teaches you first. And then khalas, there is nothing else. But as you see more of what the ulama, rahimahullah ta'ala, have said, alhamdulillah, your horizon expands. And you will learn things you could not have thought of. لأن فوق كل ذي علم عليم. There are people who are very intelligent, there are people who are medium intelligence, there are people who are low intelligence, and there are people who are low IQ. So people are different. The hadith, إذا مات ابن آدم وإذا مات الإنسان انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. That text also they have used, rahimahullah ta'ala, some of them to say, well, there is an exception here. The text says if a person dies, he does not benefit from any deed except three. Now you include Tilawatul Quran, then what's the exception for? Anyone? Khalas. Now you understand. Now from what we said first, same argument. The text, they say, well, yes, indeed, that's a text sahih. But what does the text say? What you understood is not what the text says. What the text says, clearly, literally, explicitly, inqata'a amaluhu. It didn't say it does not benefit. That's how we translate it. People translate it because they've been told that's what it means, and then we translate in accordance to what we think is right, even if we know the language well, both languages well. Some of us don't know either, and we translate. So, but what he's saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inqata'a amaluhu, his action stops. He didn't say the action of others on his behalf stop. The text doesn't say that. But you're saying when you read the text, you read his deed stops, and you're translating it in meaning, even in Arabic, you're conveying the meaning that he stops benefiting from any deed. That's not the text. The text says stops doing. But it doesn't say stops benefiting. And that's wonderful. That's explicit text. There's the zahir of the nas. And plus, there are other ahadith which were mentioned before that support this. Except to extend it to other actions that were not mentioned in the text, that's an extension that is done by what? Through the ulama, by what? By qiyas, for example, by some of the rules, from the rules of proper shari'i reasoning. So this is basically, rahimahullah ta'ala, his conclusion, and then he goes into other details, which are interesting, but not necessarily they're not necessary to be mentioned at this level or at this point. And therefore, the conclusion from this is that Wallahu ta'ala alam, from the works of the ulama and this work. And remember, this was about 7 centuries ago, more than 7 centuries ago. From then on, many ulama changed their views. In the school of the Shafi'i, in the school of the Malikis, most of them now do that, if not all of them do that, and have embraced the opinion of Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, and gone back to the opinion of the early Salaf, like at least Al-Imam Ibn Qayyim mentions in this book, Allah ta'ala alam. So, in retrospect now, most of them, and in all the 4 schools of thought, that is practiced anyways. And therefore, Allah Azza wa Jal is merciful. We have something, it's ours, we can give it. And it's up to Allah to do with it, to accept or not to accept, and to spread and so on. It's up to Him. And He loves generous ibad of His. He loves those who are very generous in giving. So, tahdi, you give a gift. All the gifts you give is a good deed. Ya Allah. Especially, I think most of them, if not all of them, will say this is okay and this is good. Especially if I say, Ya Rabbi, this deed I have performed that I know you love as a deed, accept it from me. It's because Allah loves Salah, Allah loves Tilawat al-Quran, Allah loves Hajj, Allah loves Umrah, Allah loves Sadaqah, and so on and so forth. I know you love that, Ya Allah. I have performed it, please accept it from me. And if you have awarded by your grace any benefit of it to me, please, I offer that to my father. I offer that to my mother. I offer that to my beloved brother who passed away, kada, kada. Please, grant that to them. Allah love those who are generous. And He gives to both. Especially if it is done sincerely. Of course, some of us think, well, if all my deeds I give to someone else, what else do I have left? Well, that's a level. But some levels, as he mentions here, rahimahullah ta'ala, of some of our predecessors, and they were people like that. Remember, they are in a different hal, in a different state of heart and of mind and of maturity. They have said, all my deeds, everything I do, when they were living, mashallah, in obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal, all my deeds, obligatory ones and supererogatory ones, I give to Ummati Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I keep nothing for me. I want to go to Allah bankrupt. I have nothing. I rely on Allah's generosity. Now some ulama say you can't do that. Some ulama say yes, you can do that. It's up to you. But of course, who will do this? A person must have a certain level of yaqeen and of certitude that is very special. Because what if the result is, well, you come to Allah and you gave all your deeds and you have nothing? Go to the left side. Are you ready for that? No. Just know that there are people like that in our history. And the ulama mention. And therefore giving, performing ibadah, performing righteous actions, and giving them as a hadiyah to whom you please. Most of the ulama say, alhamdulillah, on the basis of these arguments, yes, you may do that. Because it's a hadiyah. It's a hadiyah. And all those arguments that were mentioned, opposing it, do not make the point. They are speaking of deeds and not of benefits. وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ مَا سَعَى, etc. And Allah Azza wa Jal, if we give a gift in this dunya to someone else, it's accepted. And a gift means what? Something I own, it's my right. I can give up my right to whom I please. Now we're walking together, and then we're walking together and we want to enter the door. What do we do usually sometimes? Some of us, what do they do? Who does what? You first, and then the person who is on the left says to the one to the right, "No, you are on the right, you go first." He says, no, please, no, you go first, it's the sunnah, you go first. Khalas, I go first, stop screaming. But what's the mistake here in the scholarly fiqh sense? What did Rasulullah teach? First of all, did he teach it's obligatory on the person on the right to enter first? No, it's an adab. It's an etiquette. It's mustahab. It's an etiquette. Number one. Number two, that adab teaches what? That the one who is on the right, it is his right to go first. In adab language. So if it's my right to go first, I say, no, you go first, please. You're an elderly person or a teacher. Or no, stop, I'm on your right, I go first. Oof. That's not the purpose of that concept. It's not adab. Number two, it's my right to go first. I can give up. A right I can give up by consent. I can give up my right. He insists, you are on the right. I said, Jazakallah khair. But that's my right. I choose to give it up. Please enter first. There's another form of adab, counter adab with adab, or adab with an elderly, with a teacher, with a weak person. Teaching a young person also proper adab. Because أي حق, the rule is any right that is mine, I have the Shar'i right to what? To give it up, to bypass it. I have the right to do that. Not, I have to. Keep that in mind. And therefore, by adab, Allah Azza wa Jal also, good things that are mine and my right, I have the right to give that up and to award it to someone else and ask Allah to accept. هكذا في جميع أفعال الخير. In all acts that are virtuous and meritorious and good, we can do that in accordance to this, I think, this powerful and beautiful opinion, which has become with time the opinion of the vast majority of the ulama of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. والله تعالى أعلم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. إن قلت صوابا فمن الله وحده، إن قلت غير ذلك فمن نفسي ومن جهلي. أعوذ بالله أن أذكر به وأنساه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك.